I couldn't even begin to tell you how many late nights I've spent panning around on Google Earth, looking at the remote classified corners of the Nevada desert. I suspect, if you watch this channel, many of you probably have done the same. If you have, and your mouse cursor happened to land on a certain corner near the southern edge of the NTS, you probably came across this. Unfortunately, this isn't the entrance to the fabled S4 facility, though I do occasionally get emails asking if it is. But it is, in fact, a large tunnel that leads underground into what is known as the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository. This facility was carved into the ground decades ago at this point, and it was built, as the name would suggest, to contain nuclear waste, although it's sitting completely empty. We'll talk about why that is in just a little bit. But I was looking around the area on my land use mapping app, and I came across something that kind of surprised me. While the entrance tunnel, as you would expect, is indeed located within the restricted zone, it appears that large sections on top of the mountain are actually on public land. I decided to dig a little deeper on this, first asking ChatGPT if the area was in fact public, to which it told me that it was not, and that the land had been withdrawn by the military and the Department of Energy when the facility was constructed. Further research led me to some sources that said while yes, the land was indeed withdrawn, the withdrawal order had expired in 2011, and the land was now public again. Even further research called this into question, however, and there were some suggestions that the military was still enforcing this corner of the desert as if it were restricted, and that individuals who attempted to establish mining claims in the area were denied for national security reasons, even though the BLM maps listed this area as public. It seemed kind of like we had a situation where who exactly controlled the land was in dispute. So today's mission, I'll be seeing if I can access this legally dubious corner to see what exactly I encounter out here. Let me take a brief detour to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that would be Hover Air. So this thing that I have here, it's called the X1 Pro Max. This thing is a fully featured 8K cinematic drone that honestly is a huge lifesaver if you're a solo outdoor content creator like I am, because it allows me to get some really epic cinematic shots without the need for a camera crew following me around. Being so small and light makes it perfect for the kind of content I make, where I'm often backpacking out in the wilderness, and I'm looking to save space really wherever I can. I can just pull it out, unfold it, and start controlling it right away from my smartphone, without the need for any complicated setup or configuration. Not to worry if you like physical joysticks and don't want to rely on just the smartphone screen, because Hover Air has you covered there too. Just use the handy beacon attachment and the joysticks, and now you're ready for some precise controls while still using your smartphone as the screen. The X1 Pro even has these really cool creative modes built right in, so you can capture different types of cinematic shots right at the push of a button. Of course, when I'm out on my motorcycle, I like to set it to the tracking mode so it can follow me down the trails. I've been using this little thing for a couple of months now, and every time I pull it out, I'm honestly blown away by how good the video looks from such a small package. The camera has great stabilization, and of course that 8K sensor lets you have all the extra resolution you need for cropping your footage without losing any quality. I also really like the durable mesh material and object avoidance sensors to keep me from breaking it when I'm out in the rugged terrain. I tend to be pretty rough on my gear, and this little thing has taken it like a champ. If you're looking to get into solo outdoor content creation, I would highly recommend taking a look at the Hover Air X1 Pro Max. This thing is honestly going to be perfect for you if you want to get those cinematic shots without worrying about a camera crew or any kind of complicated setup. Go ahead and hit the link down below and learn more and grab one for yourself. So our entry point into this area begins in a place called Steve's Pass, and I have no idea who Steve was, but this is his pass. So we're gonna head down this trail here. It's starting off pretty good, and I can tell it's been graded recently, but we'll see. I'll have to make a few different turns onto some other trails as we work our way towards this mountain here. So we'll see if the roads get any better or worse. So built into the earth below this mountain are a series of tunnels that were intended to be the beginnings of a massive nuclear waste storage facility. As I mentioned previously, this never materialized. Work on the facility was canceled, and what's there is sitting completely empty. The story of Yucca Mountain begins with one of the biggest challenges of the nuclear age, and that is what to do with spent fuel and high-level radioactive waste. Across the US, nuclear power plants and defense programs produce waste that remains dangerously radioactive for thousands of years, and by the early 1980s, this waste was piling up at sites in 34 different states, and it had no permanent home. In the year 1982, Congress passed the Nuclear Waste Policy Act, directing the federal government to find a long-term disposal solution. Early scientific advice dating back to 1956 suggested deep underground burial in stable rock formations as the safest option. Over time, several potential sites were studied, but one of them stood out in particular, which was this place here, the remote ridge of volcanic rock in southern Nevada called Yucca Mountain. I made a right-hand turn, so I'm now heading northeast towards the base of the mountain. According to the maps I have, I'm still well on BLM public land, but I can't imagine these roads getting maintained by them much, if at all. And yet, we've got a pretty massive washout here. It's hard to tell on camera probably, but this thing is like 2.5 feet deep. I might have the ground clearance to tackle it, but that's a last resort. I saw another side trail further back, so I'm gonna go back and see if I can avoid this for now and bypass it. Definitely not giving up that easily. All right, so I'm on the side trail now. So far, so good. We can see a lot of the volcanic rock piled up here in these big cinder cones. Looks like I'm gonna have to drive down through this wash. Looking at Gaia GPS, the trail that's marked is basically right through this wash, if it even ever was a trail. Judging by the condition of these roads, I'd say these have been washed out for longer than just these recent storms. People probably haven't been down here in years. Okay, so we're looking pretty good now. I did make it out of that wash to the other side, so I'm hoping that was the only really big washout, and we'll be in a little bit smoother territory going from here on out. But fingers crossed. It did get a little hairy there for a minute. I wasn't sure if I was gonna quite have the ground clearance, but hey, we made it. It's a good sign. So throughout the late 80s, 90s, and into the early 2000s, there was quite a bit of activity out in this area, and I would guess that these roads probably would have looked quite a bit different. There were scientific studies being conducted on the geology and the groundwater, and the construction of the deep underground tunnels began during this time, with the site officially being designated as the nation's nuclear storage spot by the federal government in 2002. Despite this, there were strong objections from Nevada's governor at the time, and it was these objections that would eventually start to spell problems for the Yucca Mountain facility. As I was driving down the trail here, I looked out my window and I noticed something off in the distance, so I'm gonna go take a look at it here. Looks like kind of a little fenced-in area. I'm not exactly sure what this is. It looks like it may be one of the monitoring stations for monitoring the groundwater. In spite of these monitoring stations and other safety measures that were put in place, there was still quite a bit of objection to the Yucca Mountain site. raised not only by the Nevada state government, but you also had local communities and Native American tribes, which I can definitely understand not wanting to have a nuclear waste dump in your backyard. It was ultimately the objections that were raised that caused the project to be canned entirely. It was around 2010 or 2011, the Obama administration pulled the plug on the project completely, and the Department of Energy withdrew from the area. The land was kind of put into a legal limbo where construction had stopped and there was going to be no nuclear waste put there, but it was still kind of unclear what exactly the future was for the project. As we're getting closer and closer to the base of the mountain, I'm seeing more infrastructure pop up. We have another little fenced-in area here with some signage. Approaching the chain link fence here, we have a small sign that says "Do Not Disturb" with instructions to contact OCC Bird Dog if you want access. This phone number here I have looked up before and can confirm that it is a Department of Energy phone number for the Nevada National Security site. I believe it traces back to an office in Mercury. This looks like it would have been an entrance road to the facility. This is some very old signage here. As you can see, it's very weathered. I really can't make out what it says. I can vaguely see something about access prohibited maybe, except for Yucca Mountain personnel. If anybody questions me, I'm going to tell them that this sign is in dire need of updating and I cannot read it. Instead of just scaling the mountain directly from the western slope, I'm going to kind of circle around to the southernmost tip of the mountain. That's going to give a little bit more of a gradual hike rather than trying to do a vertical rock scramble over loose shale. I definitely would like to avoid that if possible. So my Christmas present to myself is I upgraded my long-range camera system. So typically I'd been using a Nikon P1000, which is a fantastic camera for what it is, but the image sensor is really tiny, which is how it's able to achieve such long zoom. So I put this setup together. It's a Panasonic GH5 with a 150 to 600, a 2x teleconverter, and using the extended teleconverter function inside the camera, I'm able to achieve actually a little bit more reach than a P1000 while still delivering a bigger image sensor and hence better low light performance, a little bit better dynamic range, things like that. So this is my first outing with it. It is pretty heavy. The one nice thing about the P1000 is that it's so small and light. This is probably about twice as long and probably 3 times as heavy. But yeah, if all goes well with this, I'll probably start using this more often. All right, backpack is packed, camera gear, food, water, emergency supplies. I'm gonna go ahead and cross this ravine that I couldn't drive through and then work my way up the southern tip of the mountain here and see if we can get to the top. I stumbled across this little sign as I was walking up the path here. Interestingly, this one says to contact SAIC, or Science Applications International Corporation, instead of the Department of Energy. So I guess they were the ones maintaining this particular monitoring site. Here we have some pipes sticking up out of the ground and what looks like a well here. I can hear water flowing underneath too. So right up there on that ridge is going to be my final destination. So on this ridgeline, we have our first look across the valley. Let's go ahead and take a closer look and see what we can see. Climbing up to the top of this first ridge here brings me to some spectacular views deep into the test site, specifically into an area known as Jackass Flats, which lies mostly in Area 25. The area was the site of some significant programs, namely Project NERVA, which involved testing of nuclear-powered rocket engines. Let's take a look at some of these Area 25 structures visible from this peak at a distance of about 12 miles. NERVA, which stands for Nuclear Engine for Rocket Vehicle Application, was a joint effort between the Atomic Energy Commission and NASA to develop nuclear-powered rocket engines. This here is Test Cell A, one of the primary locations for this rocket engine testing. As with Frenchman Flat, these sites are visited on the official NNSS historical tour, but since cameras aren't allowed, this mountain here is the only way to get imagery of them. This building over here is the NRDS RMAD facility, which was used for servicing and assembling the nuclear reactors used in the rocket engines. When it was operational, there was a dedicated rail line used for transporting the reactors to the test stands. The NERVA program ended in 1973, after which the facilities out here were decommissioned. As of now, there's no documentation of any current weapon development or testing taking place at Area 25, although it is possible that such facilities could be put in place in the future, since it is a large open area that's relatively difficult to view and photograph. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on our way. We'll continue up this ridge line here and continue following it along the rest of the mountain. I left my jacket down a little ways down the trail because I got hot and didn't want to carry it with me, but the wind's starting to pick up a little bit, so hopefully I don't regret that decision. So far this slope is pretty gradual. I definitely picked the right way to hike up this mountain instead of just trying to go straight up the western side. Just made it to the top of this ridge here, and off in the distance I can see some sort of a structure, and that's generally the direction we're headed. Can't quite tell what that is, but we'll find out here in a minute. What's up, buddy? There's one of the burrows. Jackass Flat definitely earned its name. They're everywhere out here. Looks like to the left of the tower, there's some kind of another little tower there with a solar panel. Could be a Tickaboo type weather station with a security camera. I'll still steer clear of it just in case. Yeah, definitely a communications tower. They got quite a few solar panels powering it here. Let's take a look at the other side and see if we see anything interesting. And over here behind the structure, we have a cluster of signs, and it looks like some equipment in the ground. The signs are indicating that you shouldn't dig or remove material due to the presence of potential radioactive material. Of course, these signs are not accurate given that the facility was never put into operation, and there in fact is not a giant chasm full of radioactive waste below our feet right now, but there would be if the facility was operational. It's interesting these signs have been sitting up here for so long. I think they're probably here since at least 2002, if not earlier. I doubt anybody's really come up this mountain much since then. Let's head over here towards the eastern slope of the hill and look down this way towards where the entrance tunnel would be. We don't quite have the right vantage point to see it, unfortunately, but we can kind of see the general area where it is. So it would be right on the other side of this small ridge here. At the bottom of the hill, we have some tanks and another tower. And this dirt road here winds around, wraps around this hill, and goes to where the entrance tunnel is. Even though we know we don't have any radioactive material stored underneath us right now, as is tradition, I'll pull out the Geiger counter and take a quick radiation reading to see if we have anything abnormal. Looks like we're in the clear. Making my way on the 2.6 mile hike back down the mountain, I managed to get out of the area just after the sun had set. One last look at this mysterious and little traveled corner of the desert left me wondering what the future of this place might hold. There have been some comments from officials in recent years about restarting the Yucca Mountain project, but nothing definitive has materialized so far. Could the plan to store nuclear material here eventually come to fruition? Or perhaps, could what's been built be repurposed for something else? Or will the underground complex remain nothing more than an empty chasm, an unseen monument to a bygone era?